This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Portland's crackdown on illegal graffiti has been making headlines recently. There was a major freeway cleanup effort back in July, and a recent prison sentence for a high-profile tagger. You know, illegal graffiti really did explode across the city during the pandemic, but the Portland Police Bureau has been working to catch up. They now have several officers who spend part of their time investigating our city's most prolific taggers. Like, they're out there cataloging and studying hundreds of tags and graffiti styles to bring down some of the more damaging crews. But is it working? And is all graffiti bad? Today on CityCast Portland, we're listening back to a conversation our host Claudia Meza had with Officer Nate Kirby-Glukowski. He's a member of the Portland Police Bureau's Central Precinct Neighborhood Response Team, and he has a unique insight into the issue and actually has a few favorite taggers of his own. It's Monday, September 9th. I'm executive producer John Notarianni, and this is what Portland's talking about.
Claudia, what's your plaque in the background?
Oh, thank you for asking. So these are just awards that I've gotten for radio and podcasting and stuff. Thank you. Yeah,
Very cool.
Got it at OPB.
Very nice.
Now we're a little, scrappy, so we don't get awards. We just
You could give each other awards.
It's a really good idea. All right. Well, before we jump into things, how do you go about investigating a potential serial tagger? I mean, you're like one of the main guys doing this in the city. You're like our graffiti Dick Tracy. What is the first step if you were to bring one of them down?
Sorry, this is before we jump into things? What comes after this? This feels like jumping in. Great question. We're looking at who's having the most impact.
Okay.
We're looking at who is affecting the most victims, who is creating the most out there. Some of that is very complaint driven. There will be specific victims who are like, we are just getting hammered by person X or person Y. Every night we clean and they come right back, or they've hit every one of our surfaces, or maybe it's just somebody who is really spreading it out, but they've put up 300 or 600 tags in a year, and that impact is really in that top, 5% of taggers. Other times, we look at somebody who maybe doesn't put up quite as much, but what they are putting up is so damaging that we really need to figure out who they are and do an investigation on them. A good example of that is throughout 2022, we had 2 taggers, one by Thuja and one went by Beer. They were both in the Kill Your Television tagging crew, which is a very old crew. It's been around since the late 90s. And Beer deeply felt that graffiti had lost its way and needed to pay attention to its core principles, which was like outlaw culture. And I can speak to this because I did interview him, but also we served search warrants on both of their phones, and we saw their communications back and forth. And this is what they were saying to each other. And they were very angry about murals. They were very, very angry about Portland Street Art Alliance.
Oh, no. Were they targeting the actually really beautiful street art?
Exactly.
Oh.
Because they thought that was selling out or gentrifying or contrary to the core of what graffiti is. So Beer and Thuja specifically went after these murals, and they went after a couple dozen of these murals, and they started a war on social media with other taggers who, those were their murals.
I can't believe I missed this.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
But also not just within the graffiti community was it a big deal. It was clearly a big deal for everyone on the Central East Side and downtown, who, appreciated these murals going to work or going to and from home, and then to see them just like defaced again and again and again, that really bumped to the top of our list, and we did a really focused investigation on the 2 of them. So it's a measure of like impact.
Yeah. And let's clarify real quick because we talked about street art and these beautiful murals. What kind of graffiti are you guys looking for? I mean, is it just impact or is it different styles?
Well, really briefly, which is not my strong suit, by the way. I'm not a very concise person. I apologize for that, but I'll try. We generally categorize graffiti in 4 different types, right? You have political graffiti, which is very much message based and can sometimes be a symbol or a flag also, right? Like that's not what we're focused on. You have gang graffiti, which is communication between rival groups. It's announcing territory. It's communicating threats. That's also not what myself and my partner at the Neighborhood Response Team for Central Precinct are focused on either. A third type would be hate speech graffiti or bias crime graffiti. That also goes to our bias crime investigators. That's not really what we're diving into. All of those other 3 types of graffiti, it's very hard to attribute that to one single person. So the same message could be repeated and written by 10 or 20 different people, right? So what we focus on is the moniker-based graffiti.
Okay.
What is tagger culture, tags.
Yeah.
And these are the people that are fiercely tied to their identity. Like, I am this person and nobody better come close to what my name is. Again, we've been in social media accounts and we've done search warrants on in people's messages and we've seen that this is reality. They will fight each other over their name and it's very territorial. It's very ego driven. And so we are able to really hone in on, the person who writes beer is this one person and they write all of them. Now, within that, taggers they'll run the spectrum, right? You can do a burner, which is a massive piece that's multiple colors and just huge, right? And then you go down the hierarchy and you're putting up a multicolor piece and it's maybe big also, but there's space for other people to put up tags. Below that, you have maybe just a block piece or an outline, and then down the line to a little throw.
Look at you.
And so you'll see a beer tag, and it could just be a scribble of lines, and that's a throw. It's small. But then if there's more time, you could do a single color, larger piece, or you could do a multicolored piece, and so on and so on and so on. So each of the graffiti taggers really is running the gamut. They're doing all of those things. It's just a matter of what the focus is. If the night is, I'm going to go out and do a multicolor piece, and that's what you're going to go do. I'm going to go out with a single can of spray paint and my skateboard and hit 50 different places in one night, 50 different street signs, then you're just doing throws all over the place. And it's the same tagger. The tag looks different. You just got to figure out how to read it.
I grew up in East LA. So I grew up with a lot of backyard practice, people, you go to friends' houses, and I haven't heard the word throw in so long, Nate. So when you said, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that police officers knew these terms. Oh, I feel so seen. Okay, I'm assuming because you've had to closely study so many of these different styles of graffiti that you might have gained just a slight appreciation for a certain type of style, or maybe even, I don't know, an artist. Can you share your faves? And I want to preface that this is no way saying you approve or condone illegal graffiti on public property. I'm just asking Nate, the man behind the badge. Have you at all just been this is pretty cool. It's not that bad.
100%. I can appreciate skill, in anything, right? You see somebody who's incredibly accomplished snowboarder or a really good knitter, and you can appreciate skill, right? And I could appreciate skill within graffiti even when it's vandalism and not on a sanctioned wall. It's wow, that person has incredible talent. Every tag they do is so clean, it's creative, it's not just the same thing every time. And so for sure I have more appreciation and respect for people that have a lot more talent out there. Personality and attitude matters a lot too. I mean, Beer inarguably had a lot of talent, but his thing was destroying murals. So it was really hard to get behind appreciating his talent when he was just so terribly destructive. Yeah. And so, there are some that I definitely don't mind looking at, and there's others that just look like trash. And within the city, we've got really good people.
Some pretty good ones.
Yeah.
Can you shout out a few? You can't, huh? You can't, but can you? Was there someone that you're just I mean, we're going to bring you down. If you're listening, we're bringing you down. But appreciate the effort.
I think that we've got a couple folks in the city that are pretty Like, I'll acknowledge some folks who have like incredible skill.
Okay.
Antsy
Okay.
is a tagger with incredible skill. Naive is a tagger with like pretty incredible skill. There are a couple others that come to mind, but I might have active investigations on them. So we'll hold it up from there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for answering, honestly. All right. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we return, more with Officer Nate Kirby-Glakowski.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Hey, it's John from CityCast Portland. Let's face it, sometimes bad stuff happens. A serious injury, a catastrophic accident, even a wrongful death. It can really turn your world upside down. And when it does, you deserve unwavering support from a dedicated team. Yeah, you need a lawyer. D'Amour Law Group has over 30 years of experience protecting the rights of Oregonians. Their team of skilled attorneys, led by the renowned trial lawyer Tom D'Amour, will work tirelessly to make sure your voice is heard and your rights are protected. Here's what one of his clients said. Tom fights for his clients from the first day they meet him through the last day of trial. So if you need help holding those responsible for your injuries accountable, contact D'Amour Law Group at 503-222-6333 or visit d'amourlaw.com to schedule a free consultation. They're committed to fighting for the justice and compensation you deserve right here in Portland.
Hi, this is David, the CEO of CityCast. Do you ever find yourself holding back on travel because you're afraid of a language gap? Well, mind the gap no longer, as long as you have Babbel. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app. Its 10 minutes lessons are quick and handcrafted to get you talking your new language in 3 weeks. So I was reminded in the Olympics how much I love French. I had spoken French as a kid, but it has deteriorated to nothing. But I thought I would love to take a trip back to France with my girlfriend, but I'm embarrassed because my French is at 0. And I thought, why don't I get on Babbel and revive my French? And it's been a joy for the past few weeks. I'd forgotten everything. I'd forgotten plurals. I'd forgotten articles, vocabulary. Mostly I'd just forgotten how to speak and how to listen. And Babbel has me back on track with lots of speaking and lots of listening, because that's how you get better at a language. So I've been working on time, for example, and there's this way in French where when you say 2:45, you don't say 2:45, you say 3 o'clock minus 15. So, je rentre à 3h moins le quart. I'm coming back at 2:45. Anyway, it's so much fun to speak. And don't take my word for it. There's studies from Yale, from Michigan State University that prove that Babbel works. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Before becoming one of Portland's main graffiti hunters, you also worked in nuclear disarmament in DC, served in the Navy, went to U of O, studied, like neighborhood. I don't quite understand what neighborhood studies is, but like
At U of O?
Yeah.
This might have been a miscommunication. I did international studies in political science with a focus on conflict studies in Latin America.
At U of O?
Yeah. Not neighborhood studies.
Good, because I had to Google it. I was like, what is neighborhood studies?
I do work for the neighborhood response team right now at Portland Police Bureau. For the last 3.5 years, I've been on Central Precinct's neighborhood response team.
Listen, Nate, do you see those plaques right there?
I do.
We do our prep, okay?
I also see the skull of that small mammal with really big teeth. And it's intimidating. You put that up there to intimidate your interviewees.
No, I didn't. I didn't put that up there. I got that. It's a long story. It is real, though, Nate.
So for the nuclear disarmament thing in DC, it was an organization called Global Zero. I was chief of staff for them for a couple of years. It was nuclear disarmament policy work. And so it wasn't like cut the red wire, cut the blue wire sort of thing.
We didn't think you were going into the missiles. We didn't think that was happening. No.
Yeah, that's not the thing.
Just send in Nate and just drop in.
I was in the Navy, but that was not nuclear either.
Well, what else does the neighborhood response team do?
So I've been a Portland police officer for almost 8 years. I've been at Central Precinct ever since coming off of probation, so for about 7 years. And I've been on the neighborhood response team for about 3.5 years. We are the special projects team. Each precinct has one, and we're there to really focus on what the precinct's needs are and deliver those. We're in uniform, we're on the radio. The difference between us and patrol is that we don't have an assigned district. We just kind of have assigned projects.
Gotcha.
And this can be just about anything. We wind up doing community meetings. I do a fair amount of neighborhood meetings or business meetings or whatever other group wants a meeting. We also carry a caseload. We have, serial investigations into burglars or into graffiti vandals, or currently I'm working a financial fraud case, and you name it. It's the sort of things that the detectives are very focused on, our much higher person crimes, and our patrol is very much engaged in emergency response, like moving from one thing to the next. And so there's a pretty big gulf there, and we try to take on the cases that have the most impact. We also do a significant amount of social assistance.
Okay.
So we're plugged into transition projects, we're plugged into Cascadia Health, and we are working closely with the SSEC and are able to get people into tiny homes regularly.
Oh, cool.
I spend a lot of my week offering and helping people get off of the streets. We work a lot with our houseless community, build relationships there and trust and as much legitimacy as we are able. And that's what I often find is the best way to help people out of those hard spots.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to try to get them into the villages. They seem to really work. So your beat encompasses so much, as you just went through. How do you see the connection between the amount of graffiti that you're seeing and all these other types of social ills? I mean, is it just coincidental? Because it seemed like there was a rise in a lot of stuff and people are just like, whoa, graffiti. That's the thing that's really bothering my eyes right now. So I'm just curious, like, what the conversation is about that.
Fair. For sure, graffiti spiked in 2020, but it was steadily on the rise since about 2015 when the Portland Police Bureau had to disband its graffiti task force. They had a couple full-time officers that just did graffiti. Then there was just a steady increase in the amount of graffiti until a huge uptick in 2020 for a myriad of reasons, right? And then that led to people in our city that get to decide these sorts of things saying, we have to do something about this again. It's not that Patrol or Portland Police Bureau wasn't still apprehending individual vandals in the act when and where they could. That was still happening, but there wasn't any kind of like comprehensive investigation into it.
Gotcha.
So sure, somebody would get caught maybe doing a tag, and then they would be maybe told to stop, or they would get a citation for a small misdemeanor offense, and then they would keep tagging. So mid 2021, we had a specific graffiti vandal who was tagging his BSE MVP 503 and Blockstar, and he was going after all of the bridges. He called himself the Bridge Monster on his Instagram page and in the videos he would post of himself.
I can't believe they have social media. I just feel like they're ratting on themselves. That's all. Just like, are you kidding me, dude?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, sorry, go on.
This is kind of the culture of just how lawless graffiti got there for a moment. Like this guy, this tagger, was literally filming himself being like, the cops don't do shit. I can do whatever I want. This is my name. This is my address. He literally put it all up there, and he was just hitting bridge after bridge after bridge. And the impact of a giant graffiti tag on a bridge is enormous because you have to shut down I-5 for a couple hours to clean it. And that just obviously puts everything in a standstill everywhere. And so RDOT was coming to us and being like, they just this guy got another one and got another one. And so we're the neighborhood response team. We're the special projects team. When something needs to get done that no one else quite has space to do it, that's our bread and butter. That's what we thrive at. I love it. Semper Gumby, I always like to say. Stay flexible, always flexible.
Semper Gumbio? That's pretty good.
Well, I wasn't a Marine, so I'm not going to say Semper Fi, but Semper Gumby. That's what we say in the Navy.
That's really fun.
So, yeah, it didn't take long. We did the investigation. He was so blatant and obvious about it that we, had him arrested pretty quickly. And we were able to bring a significant amount of cases all together, all of them high-level cases because of the very high amount of damage. There were several other victims of the ODOT. He was also vandalizing PSU a ton and a couple other places. And so we basically got, half a dozen cases from each of like 4 or 5 different victims that he was really focused on. And we stopped it. He hasn't done it again since.
So you're saying this happened? Yeah, during the pandemic. This is basically...
That was mid-2021.
So my question was more like, is there a connection between like, burglaries, theft, the issues that you're seeing downtown and graffiti? But what I'm hearing is you're just like, well, it just created this sense of lawlessness. Like if things like this are happening, then people just think they can get away with more.
This took me a little while to wrap my head around.
Okay.
And I realized that after a few months of looking into graffiti, it fostered a culture of criminal permissiveness. And I really have come to believe this. And that really is affecting 2 different populations. You have the vast majority of our city who goes out, and the volume of graffiti that we have on the freeways, on the buildings, on the street signs, it weighs on them. It drags them down. It makes them feel that things aren't safe. If people are just getting away with all of this, then what else are they going to get away? It fosters a fear of crime, if not the actual crime itself. And that fear of crime is incredibly harmless to our city. We just saw numbers again that city of Portland lost population again.
You said harmless. Is it harmful or harmless?
Did I say harmless?
Yeah.
No, definitely harmful. It is definitely harmful.
Okay.
We just saw numbers again of our population in the city declining, and, foot traffic down, and all of these things are not good for the health and vibrancy of our community. And I think that graffiti is inextricably linked in that perception the general public has that things are bad. And the other community I think it's impacting are frankly folks that are out there already doing crimes. We have people that commit burglary and steal cars and theft and worse things and violent crime. And when they look around and they see graffiti everywhere, they also feel like the police don't have the resources to respond to these things. These people are getting away with it. Then I can get away with it too. I'm not saying it creates criminals from scratch or from nothing, but I believe it can only serve to encourage that kind of behavior.
So the legislature granted ODOT $4 million this year to do more cleanups, which began last month. Are you seeing that make an impact?
The literature, and I think in my experience in the last 3 years of doing this, or 2.5 years of doing this, is it shows, it substantiates that the more buffing that happens, the more frequently that area gets buffed, the less likely that specific area is going to get tagged again. This culture that wants notoriety, this fame-based culture of the graffiti tagger that wants their moniker up in as many places as possible, and they want it to stay up as long as it can so they can focus on other areas, right? But if a wall is getting buffed or cleaned every night, every day, then it's a lot of work to keep your tag up on that spot. And maybe your ego encourages you to keep putting it back up there again and again. But at some point, you're going to tire out and you're going to go find a spot where your tag stays up longer. But if you just buff like once every 6 months...
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Well, maybe you're just creating a clean canvas for people to come back because they know it'll be good for 6 months.
Yeah, that is actually what I was like, well, you're just making a nice canvas, but yeah.
Well, what we do have a lot of in the city that I think are some pretty unsung heroes out there in the graffiti world are these volunteer buffers. And we have a lot of them out there in the city. And these are people that...
Wait, really? Volunteer?
And there are tons of them. And they're sick of it in their neighborhood, and either with their own personal funds, or there's a program with the city abatement, a graffiti abatement office that can help them with supplies. They'll go out once a week or every single morning and do a 1-hour walk around their neighborhood and clean graffiti or paint over graffiti on buildings, on signs, on trash cans, on sidewalks.
That's crazy.
And there are dozens of them out there. And when they are out there every day, you see that their specific areas don't get as much graffiti.
Mm-hmm. I'm just real curious, real quick, before we just wrap up. Did you guys ever catch Penis Girl or Vag Boy? I remember 3 years ago, they were like up everywhere. They even have a Reddit thread dedicated to like, oh, here's a new spot.
Yeah, no, Reddit made it real clear that there would be significant riots if I went after Penis Girl. So,
So you couldn't go after Penis Girl. I know you're being facetious, but that's hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know how they got so much acclaim for that, but they did. I just think it's because it's so tongue-in-cheek and so goofy. And I mean, I almost felt like they were spoofing the other taggers is what I kind of felt was going on there. And one of the reasons I think it was so funny.
And you're just like, we're just going to leave this.
The fact of the matter is that like, we do a lot of jobs and we have finite resources and really important things to put that energy into. Like we were a part of the point team on fentanyl crisis downtown or you name it. Like we have a lot of jobs. So we really got to focus on who we're going after. And we're going to keep doing that and do those kind of comprehensive investigations in people. I mean, our goal real quick, just to get it out there is to cause as much deterrence as possible. And so with these comprehensive investigations, with the search warrant process, it's to be like, hey, we're taking this seriously. You have gone way too far. You got our attention. If there is no history of crime prior to that, those people will probably wind up with probation and they stop. That's been our pattern so far. Mm-hmm. And they don't do it anymore. Or they find a more productive outlet that doesn't, damage a lot of small businesses and things. So that's really our focus.
Yeah. Well, Nate, thank you so much for taking the time from your really, really busy work schedule to just chew the fat with us and tell us a little bit more about what's going on and what you're doing. Like, of course, we appreciate your work. And I'm glad that you at least can appreciate a few of these, just a few of these artistic attempts,
Yeah, me too. I don't hate any of these folks. I just need them to do less.
Or get better. Like, what? That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.